The Pledge of Allegiance. Breathe. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We'll run through the agenda. We have to go through several sets of minutes tonight. The minutes from the special meeting of November 20th and the regular of the same evening, the special meeting from December 3rd and December 4th, and the regular meeting of December 17th. That will be followed by community relations, announcements, and open forum. We have two items under appointments and resignation. That is the appointment of a police sergeant and notice of retirement, director of assessing. We have three scheduled appointments: 6:45 p.m., Fire Chief Knopf, 7 p.m. transfer of liquor license, and 7:15 Good Energy. Under new business, we have 5 items: request for a common vic from Treehouse Brewing, Civilian Traffic Commission, Municipal Building Committee, and update, a review and approve of FY 2021 budget calendar, and a planning board to discuss alternative methods of taxing regarding solar arrays. We have no items under old business. One committee report, that's the Public Safety Building Capital Campaign update by Ms. Biwak. And that is it. And then we will have executive session. We will come out of executive session to vote on anything that needs to be taken care of publicly and then to adjourn. So, the first item.
Minutes. Mr. Chairman, any reason why we cannot combine the 5 sets of minutes and have them approved
If
that
the
way?
board prefers to do it that way, we can.
Sure. I don't have any corrections, so if the board's good, I'm good.
Just have to make the motion that way.
All right, I'd like to make a motion that we approve the 5 sets of minutes we've received tonight as submitted.
Second. Third.
We have a motion, second, and a third. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Chair votes aye. Motion carries unanimously. Thank you. We'll move on to community relations announcements and open forum. There are a few announcements. From the town clerk, 2020 dog licenses are now available. New this year, you can pay online at townofcharlton.net. Online payments and license will be mailed to you. At the town clerk's office, you can pay by cash or check only, or by mail, and that is payable by check only. Taste of the Towns at St. Joseph's Church Hall, 10H Putnam Road Extension, Saturday, February 29th, 2020, from 6 p.m. to 8:30 p.m. Tickets are available at the Charlton Senior Center or Cornerstone Bank in Charlton. You can call 508-868-5289 and learn more at the website reascharlton.org. The lottery calendar, February 2020, Charlton Reyes Foundation annual fundraisers. Your $10 donation to purchase this lottery calendar gives you a chance to potentially win 31 times and at the same time help your most vulnerable neighbors with their heating and cooling needs. Calendars are available at the Charlton Senior Center. You can call 508-248-2231 or 508-868-5289 for more information. Town Hall will be closed on Monday, January 20th, 2020, in observance of Martin Luther King Jr. Day. Sand for seniors. In winter, stairs and walkways become slippery with ice and snow. Do you need a bucket of sand to prevent falls? The Charlton Fire Department is pleased to announce their Sand for Seniors program. Charlton firefighters will deliver a 5-gallon bucket of sand to your residence. This program is offered to Charlton residents only aged 60 and over who live in a private residence. You can call 508-248-2231, Charlton Senior Center, to order your bucket. This program is made possible through the cooperation of the Home Depot, the Charlton Highway Department, and the Charlton Council on Aging. And I would like to take this moment to add one more announcement. It's just a thank you, since we haven't, I don't think, seen everyone since the holidays, but the toy donations to UMass Medical's Child Life Services, the Pediatric Trauma Unit, went very well. We delivered an SUV full of toys. So a lot of thanks go out to everyone who participated and donated, Charlton Police, Charlton Fire, everyone who helped. It meant a lot to those kids, and thank you. You helped make that a very successful program. That said, is there anyone here for open forum? Okay.
So, David back.
How are you?
Sure.
And if you would, just, and Mike, just say your name and address.
Okay, sure. I'm Michelle McAvee. I am at 78 Partridge Hill Road. So I'm here to bring up the topic of a solar farm project that's taking place through my property through an easement, but it is actually affecting several of us houses that are abutting the property or the property lines. So it's Partridge Hill Road. I believe the project itself is referred to as Colburn Road project. So long story short, my property has the easement. So they were doing the underground trench with the wires. They put an above-ground power box. We just had a town hall meeting last week, and there is a lot of major issues that took place in this project without prior approval or like through the planning board. It's just a mess. One in particular, they actually put additional things next to the above-ground power box on my property on that easement. They have several yellow pillars around an additional cement pad that was not part of the initial planning board plans. It just popped up, and I'm absolutely furious about it. Not only that, just like visually an issue on my property. There's a lot of other things that has gone on that I think should be addressed by the committee. They disturbed the wetlands. They were supposed to go on either side. There's like a creek back there, so I know like the conservation committee had been involved. So what they did was they actually drilled on either side and like went under it to not disturb it. Well, they said they wouldn't disturb it. It has been ruined. It's no longer like a creek, it's more like a pool now, and I know a lot of the neighbors are upset. Another major issue is the point of the town hall meeting or planning board meeting last week was for them to get approval to install batteries near the solar farm. Come to find out, the batteries are already installed. It's a major issue because there's actually part of the bylaws, which I believe another neighbor is going to mention as well. Part of the bylaws of the town state that the batteries would have to be 100 feet from the property lines, from all sides of the property line.
Yeah, so the question I have for you, though, and why I do appreciate the concern and actually share your concern. So far, and I'm happy that you had a chance to air that out, but everything you're bringing up so far falls under either the planning board or conservation, not the board of selectmen. Have you spoken to them yet?
Yes, there's actually members of the,
So, through the chair, I've seen Ms. Ridlack sitting in the back, Patsy, through the chair, if you could just, one of the planning board members, because I have a few things. It's gonna be quick.
I'm almost done, I promise.
So, through the chair. Patsy, is the plan approved?
The initial site plan was approved without batteries.
Okay, so my suggestion is to have Mike Andrade go out there, do a field report on what the problem is, okay? Have him send it back to you, okay, that they put up something on there that that's not supposed to be, they haven't followed the plan that you approved, and then start with the planning board's procedure from there on, handling somebody that's in non-compliance, okay? Rather than, this is gonna go very long if we allow this to go on here, okay? But it's all in your purview. All that stuff has to be taken care of with the site visit by Mike Andrade saying that they haven't followed the site plan that you've approved, and these are the conditions that they violated. You're probably gonna have to talk to council about how you're gonna enforce that, because it's gone way beyond even Kurt saying cease and desist or whatever, and I know there's a lot more behind this than that, so, but that's my suggestion on that. On the Conservation Commission side, that has to go to the Conservation Commission. But everything, I agree with the chair, everything you've said here belongs down at the Planning Board or the Conservation Commission, and the Planning Board chair knows how to handle that.
And it's all very-
She's well aware of how to handle
Yeah,
that.
your concerns are valid, but we just want to make sure they're directed to the right board who can actually take care of that.
Yeah, I've been collaborating with the board, and it was encouraged that at least I made it known to the town committee tonight,
Yeah.
to make sure that it's on the radar, and I don't know
Yeah.
what steps are taken from there.
That's
but-
all within the
I can-
planning board's purview. The Board of Selectmen has absolutely nothing to do with that. We cannot enforce anything there
Mm-hmm.
because there's an existing site plan, okay? Randy will know how to take care
So
of
through the
this.
chair, I know we'll have to meet on a different, the reason why when we were having this conversation, I said it's gonna be a good reason. You definitely should speak to the board. The planning board did vote to issue a cease and desist, to have Kurt act, and there may be some communication issues, but that meeting was had with Randy, and we were told no. So, no, we're not getting a cease and desist. So we may need to, so I guess I'm asking if we can get it scheduled in front of our board so we can kind of work out whatever that miscommunication might have been.
Through the chair. That you still need to have Mike Andrade go out there as the peer review engineer, write down everything that's wrong with the place. okay?
That's already in process. So
Okay.
we've
So-
already.
If I could, I'm going to tie it all together, I think, so to your point, if there's an issue with the building commissioner inspector and the communication issue, we would deal with that. Everything else, they have to deal with. I think maybe what the course of action should be, and I think John's right, is work with planning on rectifying that situation in conservation. And then we'll hopefully work with planning and get information from planning about what's the issue with the building commissioner inspector and the communication issue, so that we can address that. And then we'll put that on a future selectmen's meeting, I'm gonna guess either in 2 or 4 weeks when we get that information. And then we can address our part, but they'll have to address their part.
Okay.
Yeah, through a chair. Yeah, because I'd want to be able to hear both sides of it, because, Patsy, again, I'm playing hypothetical. If you're asking for X and that's not happening, I would need to know, pardon the pun, why.
I would love to know
that's
why too,
happening.
so thank you.
And there may be very good reason, and maybe just a quick conversation can resolve it, and maybe much ado about nothing. But I think it's worth, in the spirit of, continued partnership amongst town hall as we, move forward, to just be able to have very, congenial conversation to say, so what's really going on here?
So Patsy, if you could get us that information in the next week or so, and we'll get it on an agenda, and we'll make it an agenda item for our
We'll
part
be
too.
sure to.
And if you would keep us abreast of what happens with
The planning board
project.
will work with the abutters to make sure that everything is handled.
I will say, as a former planning board chair in a different town, I don't have a lot of patience when it comes to builders who violate rules. So, again, I'm dying to hear these facts, because there better be very good reason why this has occurred.
Well, I appreciate it. I think it's on your radar now, so I did my job. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank
Thanks,
Patsy.
guys.
Thank you.
Thanks, Patsy.
Thanks, Jonathan.
Thanks, John.
What is wrong?
Sure.
Max, seriously?
I guess you don't have to, you know what?
Honestly, you still have like 3
I
weeks
think-
with
Oh,
us.
you know what this is? This is one of the good things. So
I think
stepping
that
down
we should
there.
make Chief Maxfield sit there, run up, run back, run up.
I can do that too.
Kind of like that old Bugs Bunny.
I need the exercise.
Yeah, so the next item on our agenda then is the appointment of a police sergeant. The Charlton Police Department, your job, currently has a vacancy in the position of sergeant. We held an assessment center for the position in October of 2019. The scores were certified in December, and there was a tie for the top spot between 2 candidates. The senior candidate is Patrolman Gary Wood. During Patrolman Wood's employment since October of 1986, he has held the position of detective for 18 years. He is a graduate of Western New England College, holding a Bachelor of Science in Law Enforcement. He has worked as a trainer in battlefield forensics for the United States Army and has served as a civilian contractor in both Baghdad and Afghanistan as a forensic scientist processing IED components. Patrolman Wood is highly qualified to serve in the position of sergeant, and we are honored to have him as part of the Charlton Police Department. I am recommending his promotion to sergeant. Chief?
I was going to read that, but okay.
Well,
Sorry, let's
Okay.
move seats.
And here he is.
anything you want to add to that, Chief?
He's a good guy. I'm asking the board to promote. I recommend the board promotes him.
So,
If anyone else on the board would like to say anything, I would like to say thank you.
Thank
For
you.
your service to our country and your service to the town of Charlton.
Thank you.
And everything described in here, I think, goes back to, and is a testament to the quality of police officer we have in this town, and why this is the town to be in, and why other officers want to work here with our officers, because the talent and the expertise you guys bring to the table is amazing, and we're lucky to have it.
Thank you. Thank you.
I mean, you read this resume and you just go, okay, this is great. Literally, very excited.
Thank you. I am
we
too.
need a motion?
I will happily make that motion to
Do
promote.
we,
No?
need to make a motion?
Yeah, you have to appoint.
Yes, we have to.
Yeah. Make a formal motion to appoint Patrolman Wood to Sergeant Wood.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Chair votes aye, motion carries unanimously.
Congratulations.
Good. Thank you very much. Through the chair, before we go any further, can I ask the chief a question?
Okay.
With this appointment, do you have any other vacancies now at the
We have
department?
Officer McGrath retired, and we're advertising for that right now.
Okay.
So we have just one patrol officer vacancy.
Great, that's good to hear. Yep. Thank you.
And we're filling.
Yes, yeah, we're advertising it now. We've got a few applications we'll be doing.
We're going to put John in there.
I'm just making sure.
All right. Yeah, the next item, notice of
That was
retirement,
half
chief?
the room, that was the other half. the room.
Attached is a letter from Deborah Ciccarini, Director of Assessing, providing notice of her retirement effective August 18th, 2020, after 28 years of service to the town. I'd like to thank Ms. Ciccarini for all her work she has done for the town. Look forward to working with her until her retirement date.
Is Deb here?
She's here, I didn't see her.
Deb's not here?
No.
She will certainly be missed. She's definitely left the town in a better place than she found it, so.
Yeah, she's starting that retirement a little
Through the
early.
chair, do
Deb?
we have to make a motion to accept her retirement, or,
I don't know if that goes to the Board of Assessors.
okay?
I think, but I would be happy to entertain
Yeah.
a motion if necessary to maybe perhaps make a certificate for Deb to deliver to her.
Through the chair, I'd like to make a motion that we have Mary draw up a certificate of appreciation prior to Ms. Ciccarini's retirement, so that we can present it to her.
Happily second that.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Chair votes aye, motion carries unanimously. Thank you, chief. Thank you, Deb.
Thanks, Deb.
Thank you, Deb Ciccarini. She's not here, but she's done an amazing job.
Oh, God, I can't believe she's retiring. Brain drain.
Can I just know we're only 5 minutes behind schedule? Just running over to you.
All right.
I mean, that's good
We're
for
doing
us.
pretty good. We're doing pretty
Do
good.
not jinx us.
So I
Move
know.
on then, chief, our first scheduled appointment for
6:45 appointment with Fire Chief Ed Knopf, being asked to be placed on tonight's agenda to present firefighter Lindsay Kelly.
And after this, there'll be a 5-minute recess to move everyone's car. Just kidding. When the fire department shows up, they show up in force.
So, through the chair, Chief, I just want to thank you for working with the Highway Department and Council on Aging on the Sand for Seniors program. I think that was very innovative, and I appreciate everything that the firefighters and you were doing for the seniors. Thank you.
I'd love to take all of that credit, but actually none of it was mine. All I did was say, yes, do it, good job. People, firefighter Doug Robertson and Captain Dennis Carlson took the initiative on the program and got it up and running.
Thank you. And
That's how we
thank
can tell that you've never been a selectman. We take credit for everything.
Well, you have to take credit because you're also responsible for the bad things too, right?
Only bad things. Thank you for giving us the opportunity to come before you. We had, back in March of last year, firefighter Justin Moy took a job for the town of Natick. Big enough, might be a city. which left us an open position. We conducted interviews and a process through the summer, and I'm glad to sit here tonight to present to you firefighter Lindsay Kelly, who comes to us from, it's Hopedale, Sherborne, and Mendon. She's also a member of the Massachusetts Fire Academy Instructors and Support Group. And at this time, I'd like to call up her father to have her officially pinned.
Oh, dear. No pressure.
Well done.
Want me to stay here?
Such a happy meeting so far.
That'll change. Welcome to New England. Everything takes us minutes.
Yes, you.
Thanks, Lindsay.
Just remember, thanks for my time.
And all her kids are here, too. There's 4 of them back there.
Chief, I would say, and while firefighter Kelly is still here leaving, not only welcome to Charlton, but everything that we've talked about earlier about the police holds true for the fire department too. And with our police and our fire, with Chief Maxfield and Chief Knopf, you have probably one of the best chiefs in the state you could work for. So you're in a good place and you've got a good team around you.
And great to see the family here. Hey, guys.
The little boy said it's an iPad.
Okay.
Chief?
See you guys.
Second matter is a letter from Fire Chief Knopf, and I also signed on to it about current state of dispatching.
Yeah, so police and fire have been working together to identify some issues that we've had within dispatch. And I don't want to say that there's personnel issues or anything like that. We just identified that there's a gap there. We've seen increases, and you all have the letter where the volume, our volume has gone 21% over the last 3 years. Overall volume in the dispatch center has risen 55% during that same period of time. However, we have one dispatcher on at one time. We've identified an area within the work day that the volume is at a greater pace, and it's usually at a 10 to 6, somewhere in that area during the day, where we believe that an added dispatcher would bring great value to the service. So we sat down, the command staff sat down, and went over a few things. We're working on some, providing some efficiencies within our respective groups to make the job a little easier for the dispatchers, but the fact remains is that they are inundated, and we haven't had the opportunity to address that since they went full-time, one dispatcher for the last 20-some-odd years. So we think, and I grabbed the police chief in that, we think that it would benefit the town greatly if there was an additional dispatcher during that peak time.
Chief? Go ahead.
So through the chair, I see that the letter that was signed has all sorts of data points in it, chief, and I think that, I know for myself that is always a big item, that we make sure that when there is a request for increased staff or whatever, that there's data behind it that backs it up. I think that the two things that come out here is the increase of on the fire/EMS side is over 21%, while the overall call volume at the dispatch center has increased a staggering 55%. That is huge numbers. So,
And if I, through the chair, do you want me to go down there and speak, or can I stay here?
Wherever you're more
Okay.
comfortable.
So I have $15,000 in the, Sergeant Cloutier had secured in the support incentive grant. It would cost approximately $24,000 to keep that person in place between now and June 30th, and I have placed that as a request for my budget for next year. So I'm about halfway there in my existing budget to fund that person. We'd have to take a look at it again in the spring to see where we are as far as salaries and, you know, if we can continue on, or if Chief Knopf, you know, can, if we can move some money toward the end, late spring, you know, to try to get this done without having to go ask for any more. So I guess what we're asking is if, you know, we could keep this, this individual, appoint this individual, or keep them on working while the grant's paying for it, at least the next few months. And then we'll reevaluate in the springtime, you know, if we need to make a request for additional funds from the Finance Committee to get this done. But there is a real need. We've been putting this off too long, and all the area towns are running with 2 dispatchers. NFPA says that we do EMD dispatch. We're supposed to have 2 in there. So this is sort of a phased approach. If we have a qualified person who's already there, who's already working, filling a lot of the holes. So we can move her into that spot, and, you know, we can, you know, provide that service to the town. So.
Through the
It's
chair.
nice to see 2 things come, a need with a funding mechanism. It doesn't always happen that way. So if I'm understanding this correctly, and for anyone at home, the need is for another dispatcher, and for at least a temporary period of time, the funding is already there via a grant, which then allows the chief's time to work with FinCom to see if the budget supports a longer duration. But for the time being, it's funded.
Right. So to get us through this year, we need about 24,000. I already have 15, again, from the support and incentive grant that we can use for that. So it's just a matter of getting, you know, the rest of the money late, you know, to get us to June 30th. So, and, you know, it's hard because going through your budget, you know, you never know what's going to happen. You don't have a crystal ball. So sometimes you have extra funds, sometimes you don't, depending on what happens. So, you know, like I said, so we'll work. We're both going to be at FinCom tomorrow, so, to take our lumps, so.
Through the chair?
Ms. Nolan.
I have a few questions. What is the call volume? How long have you been tracking it? So what's the average number of calls, do you know, between 10 and 6?
There was backup documentation, and I can provide that with you.
Thank you.
There's graphs.
20,000 calls for the year.
That would be helpful to have before the FinCom meeting tomorrow.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and
we
it
have-
clearly identifies that time frame between 10 and 6 across the board.
That makes sense. Do you know what the nature of the majority of the calls are? Or are they across the board? Do they run the gamut?
I can speak for fire and EMS. Our call volume, again, for the last 4 years, has done nothing but risen.
I understand, but what is the nature of the calls?
55.
Car accidents, heart attacks, falls.
Yeah, EMS runs the gamut.
Okay.
So it's anything and everything is basically, and with their call volume, I believe the chief can speak better to that, but I know he's got a traffic officer that's been put in
Yes.
place. I'm sure that's a big part of increase in volume, but I'm going to let him speak to that.
Through the chair, that's both police and fire. And
Okay.
that one person is handling all the dispatching for police, all the dispatching for fire.
And EMS.
And EMS,
Especially
ambulance.
when you get that call that,
Right.
Of course.
And if they get on a call, and they've done it, and a lot of my dispatchers are here, they're excellent multitaskers, but if they get a call, they have to give CPR instructions over the phone, and the phones are still ringing, the radios are still going,
understand.
and they're alone.
Okay.
And
So
it's
here's my
really-
other question. When that happens now, is there a person who steps in to assist?
So during the day, when there's staff in the building,
Mm-hmm.
you know, a lot of times, there's the lieutenant, there's a sergeant, myself, there's Mara,
Mm-hmm.
you know, there's, to help, but 3 to 11, 11 to 7, there isn't that person. So we're, you know, which is why, again, we'll start with the highest peak, 10 or 11 in the morning till about 7 at night is when what the need that we've identified immediately. But ultimately, we want to phase in to have two. We'd start, second one, 3 to 11, we'd have one days, and then 3 to 11, and then the following year.
Okay. And do you have someone in mind to move into this position seamlessly?
Yes, Shauna Tankersley, she's here tonight. She has stepped in, has been working full-time for us. After we had the ransomware, Shauna came in and input all that data, and then we've had an employee go out on Family Medical Leave Act. She also, working with the union, rather than pay that overtime, the union agreed to have Shauna step in, in the full-time position, so we could save some money. Because they also, the union also recognized, the union president's here as well, they also recognize the need that this is necessary, so.
And the last question I had was, you mentioned something, you kind of glossed over it, there's some requirement that we have?
NFPA standards, and Chief
Well,
Kanoff can,
and we can get that back to you. Right now, I'm not sure what the standard, but there's a radio communication standards that
Radio
need to be
communication
followed.
standards.
Yes.
Okay.
Regarding dispatching.
Okay. Thank you, appreciate that.
Through the chair. So just a quick question. I know we have a joint meeting tomorrow night with FinCom. Is this something we want to vote on tomorrow night? Again, I don't anticipate any issues with it, but because there's going to be more dialogue about it and talking about
That makes
finances.
sense.
Yeah.
well, I would ask that in the interim, that I could keep Shauna on at least through the portion of the grant that I have, just in case that the board would allow me to, because you have to allow me to hire,
Oh, so through the chair.
Oh, yeah.
Can I make a motion that we hire, what do you need the motion to say, that we're hiring Shauna for the interim period?
yes.
So moved.
Second?
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion?
No, Mr. Chairman, just a very brief thing in advance of our discussion tomorrow. Just as a harbinger for everybody, I plan on being a complete budget hawk this time around, so anything that I don't think passes the sniff test, I don't care if it's line item, I'm going to go through it and ask real detailed questions, and I'm going to recommend cuts left and right. That being said, the one exception, I'm willing to say, look, things like this that absolutely need to be justified, I'm absolutely okay with. So not only am I in favor of, obviously, part-time, at least interim until the grant runs out, I'm all in favor of you bringing this forward full-time in next year's budget as well, because I think we can find the money somewhere else if necessary. So just to give you an idea about where my head's at for tomorrow night.
Excellent, thank you.
And again, through the chair, I just want to make it clear that I don't oppose this idea at all. I just thought it would be courteous to wait till tomorrow to vote on the additional funding.
And that's fine. Everyone knows my position. As long as I'm the chair, I'm not going to make a motion or a second, but I will vote. That being said, all those in favor, please say aye.
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 Opposed? Chair votes aye. Motion carries unanimously.
Thank you, Shauna.
Thank you. And thank you, chiefs, for bringing this to our attention and for pushing this forward.
Are you going to move the trucks now?
Already moved.
All right.
Now we can go put our cars back in the lot.
We waited for the chair to get here so we could get some
You
exercise.
see me huffing and puffing going in, like,
Thanks, Chief.
See you guys.
Craig, you used to chase a soccer ball.
I know, I haven't played in a year. I got to start running.
I'm blaming cigars, so I don't care about the rest.
Thanks for
Okay, it could be
answering all the
that too.
questions.
And where did you pick up that bad
Yeah,
habit?
really.
See?
Well,
I have a whole stack, but I just thought we would be getting, to have the money now for the
I caused problems.
term, so.
I just want to make sure that can continue on.
All right.
And that it's justified.
But I'm going to
Yeah.
start running again. And it's actually, it's Eliana's fault. Eli's like, you gonna run? Hasn't started yet, but she said we're
It's
going
gonna be in
to.
the job and then, oh, I got
Okay.
7 p.m.
Make sure she changes her nail color.
To match her sneakers.
No,
I don't know.
for Saturday. It's purple. It has to be nude.
All right, I'll try to remember.
Dude, still 5 minutes behind. Come on.
I'm working on it. Chief?
Yep.
7 o'clock?
Okay. 7 o'clock appointment, transfer of a liquor license. Attaches request for a transfer of liquor license from Keg Inc., DBA Quarter Keg Pub, to Quarter Keg LLC, 443 Worcester Road, Charlton, Mass. Pollyanna Farias, oh boy, I hope I said that right, manager. They have completed the paperwork required for this request. The chairman should open the hearing by reading the public hearing notice as placed in the paper and sent to the abutters. I would recommend the board approve this request.
Thank you, Chief. The Charlton Board of Selectmen will hold a public hearing on Tuesday, January 14th, 2020, at 7 PM in the Selectmen's Meeting Room, 37 Main Street, Charlton, Massachusetts, to act on a request for a transfer of liquor license from Keg Inc., DBA Quarter Keg Pub, to Quarter Keg LLC, 443 Worcester Road, Charlton, Mass. Pollyanna Farias, manager. Anyone wishing to be heard in this matter should appear on the date and time specified or submit concerns in writing, and we'll declare this hearing open at 7:09 PM. Well,
Anybody here for it besides the applicant?
anyone that has any comments or statements on this?
I only have my stamp.
I was gonna say, if not, we'll just declare the hearing closed.
I was just gonna close it, so.
Mr. Chairman, I wasn't sure whether you wanted to hear from us or not.
But that's entirely up to you.
Mr. Chairman, my name's Attorney Robert Hennigan. I'm an attorney from Worcester, and I have the pleasure of representing a group called Quarter Keg LLC in a transfer application from the existing owner of the Quarter Keg Pub. With me is Mike DuPont, who you may or may not know, and where's John? John is here somewhere. There's John Langley, Mike Savoy, Dave Savoy, and Pollyanna Farias.
Congratulations.
There you go, congrats.
All who are parties involved with Quarter Keg LLC. And the application here is to transfer Quarter Keg LLC, the liquor license that is presently owned by Keg Inc., doing business as Quarter Keg Pub Inc. And the idea here is that another entity called D&L Ventures, owned by Mike and John, will purchase this real estate property from the present owners, Thomas McCabe and James Walsh. So they will be the owners, and then the owners will lease to Quarter Keg LLC the premises for the operation of the pub, and they will continue to do business as Quarter Keg Pub. In your packet, you have information regarding that lease. You have a draft lease that would be used there. You have also a purchase and sale agreement that would explain the asset purchase agreement between Keg Inc. and Quarter Keg LLC, and also the purchase of the property from D&L from Thomas and James Walsh. You also have in there, nothing will change the interior, remain a 2,500 square foot facility, sits about 54 people with a 98, I think, overall capacity. 99, sorry, thank you. And the purchase price has been listed in your application. It is privately funded. There is no bank financing. There is no pledge information of a liquor license. It is a straight finance deal. As part of our application is the application to make Pollyanna the manager of the facility. She will run it. She has experience in the liquor industry and the food service industry. She's worked at Plainwright Park Casino, Foxwood Resort Casino in the past, so she has experience in this capacity. She's here to answer any questions that you might have. I believe we've provided all the information in our packet. I didn't hear from anyone that we were missing anything, but if we have, we'll certainly be happy to provide it. But other than that, we'd seek the board's approval for the transfer application and the naming of Pollyanna as manager.
Any other comments?
The chair?
Any questions? Ms. Noble?
Is your manager tip certified?
Yes, I am.
Okay. Have you gone through the Safe Serve course?
Yes.
Okay,
I have all the certificates.
thank you.
And they may be included in the application.
I didn't
If they
see
weren't.
it,
If we
so-
can, we can get them for you.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you.
Yep.
Anything else?
No, actually, I only ask this question half jokingly because I ask it of people all the time. Does this mean in the foreseeable future that I can finally get a burger and beer somewhere in town on a regular basis? 45 square miles and I can't find one.
So, I mean, as far as transferring the application, that was our first hurdle was the license, but we're working with the DEP on the public water supply.
Yeah.
As well as, so we have that plan working, as well as soon after closing, we'll be working with the building commissioner on opening it up as a restaurant again in the health department. So
You had me at hello. We're good.
Okay.
Will the volleyball still be there?
Yeah.
Volleyball's an important part that we'd like to
You're obsessed.
keep.
Can we ask about the water then?
Are there any other questions or comments for the hearing?
Through the chair.
Mr. McGrath?
Make a motion to close the public hearing.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to close the hearing. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Oh, okay.
Chair votes aye, motion carries unanimously. Declare the hearing closed at 7:14 PM.
Through the chair.
Mr.
I
McGrath?
make a motion that we transfer the license as requested.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Chair votes aye, motion carries unanimously.
Good luck. Looking forward to it.
Thank you very much.
Thanks.
Bob, good to see you again.
Thank you, John. Nice to see you. It's always nice to come out.
Have a plain hamburger in the future, just.
I know that.
Yeah, that's it.
And I'd like to just let Selectman Borowski know we're right on time. 7:15. Chief, 7:15 at 7:15.
Yes, John O'Rourke from Good Energy is here to update the board on the community electricity aggregation for the towns of Charlton, Millbury, and Oxford. This will renew in January 2020, meter redate from Public Power LLC. The next era fixed rate contract will end in December of 2022.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, Mr. Town Administrator, for allowing me to appear before you tonight to give you an update on the aggregation program. You'll see that I gave you a hard copy of the presentation that I have. I'll go through that quickly, and then I'll open it up for questions. Just a little history on our initial term of the aggregation, which started in July of 2017. You'll note that we started the program out in the summer, and what we did what we call a STEP program. We do that, we normally start the programs in the fall, but all of the town managers and town administrators from Charlton, Millbury, and Oxford wanted to get the program going, so we started it in the spring, started in July, and we did a step, which basically means that we did a rate from July to December of 2017 of 0.937 cents per kilowatt hour. And then the rate went up in January of 2018 to 10.13. What happened in the spring of 2018, the supplier Public Power said that the DOER, the Department of Energy Resources, essentially because they made a change in the SREC 2 program, that triggered a change in law provision in the contract. So what happened was they wanted to increase the rate for the aggregation to 10.7. What happened was there was a negotiation between a lawyers working group, an attorney working group, with not only the three towns here, Charlton, Millbury, and Oxford, but also other towns that were involved in the aggregation that was supplied by Public Power. A number of months ensued with the negotiations, and the final negotiated price for the ending of the contract was 10.43. So starting in September of 2018 through this month, the price was 10.43. During that time period from July 2017 to January 2020, the total program savings were a little over $1.1 million, and certainly on the residential side, it was just a little over $1 million. So it was very successful during that first term. And as you all know right now, the current rate for National Grid is 13,982. On that next slide, this is the renewal term. We went out to bid last May. The reason we did that is because our analysts told us the market was very good during that period of time. Go out to bid to start the renewal program in January 2020. As you can see, we got a very good bid of 10,316 per kilowatt hour, slightly below the current rate of the aggregation. What we also did, because there's more interest in renewable energy, we added a product to the aggregation, 100% local green, that's priced at 12,366. And essentially what that is, that's, we get Massachusetts Class 1 renewable energy certificates from an organization called Green Energy Consumers Alliance. They are the gold standard here in Massachusetts for providing Massachusetts Class 1 RECs. All of the money for the RECs goes to fund new projects here in Massachusetts to put more renewable energy on the market, which is obviously a good thing. The national grid rates for the period of May 1 through October 31 this year are going to be announced in March. We're not expecting that rate to be below the aggregation rate. This next slide is a graphical illustration of the rates for National Grid, that's the blue line, and the rates for the aggregation. So you can see that during the whole period, our rates were below the National Grid rates, and we certainly consider the program to be very successful. This next slide, we got together with the town managers and administrators from Charlton, Millbury, and Oxford on December 11th to discuss communications and timing of communications with participants in the aggregation. One of the primary reasons for that is because when we change suppliers, the supplier is not going to be Public Power moving forward. It's going to be NextEra. Essentially, what happens with the National Grid bills, they put an alert on the bill that the supplier has changed. And it's kind of an ominous alert, because they say, well, if you haven't authorized this, then, call the DPU and complain. What we're trying to do is head off that situation by putting, and here's an illustration of that alert that's on the National Grid bill. We just want to avoid confusion with residents that see that alert on the bill, and to avoid any calls coming into Town Hall. So essentially, what we're going to do is put a letter out to all the participants, giving them a warning of this alert on the bill. This is what the letter is going to look like. I gave you a copy of the letter. It essentially, it goes into the history of the program, goes into that alert. It illustrates the price moving forward, and that there's a new product that's 100% green, and it illustrates the savings for the program during that time period. We think that, and you not only have a copy, this was sent out to all participants yesterday, and I also left in the town administrator's office a copy of this letter on poster board, which is 2 by 3, so you can display it in Town Hall for any residents to come into Town Hall and see that.
So, John, said another way for our residents at home, they're going to receive a bunch of legally required, or at least from National Grid, some type of notification.
Yes.
Basically saying that their supplier's changing. However, in the grand scheme of things, they're servicing, nothing changes. This is, again, this is more for people at home, that literally nothing changes. This all occurs behind the scenes. All the rules continue to be in effect. It's just someone else is going to feed National Grid. They have to tell you, so you're getting this letter. So basically, don't panic. Nothing is changing.
That's exactly why we're sending this letter out, to make sure that, there isn't any anxiety among the residents if they read
So in addition to the letter, and we have the poster board for town hall, I think this is something that would be good if we had it on the town website as well, as a notice to the residents.
Absolutely,
And
yes.
if we can get on that board, anywhere we can get this in front of the eyes of the residents.
I will send a
To-
digital
to-
copy.
That'd be great, thank you.
Thanks, John.
Okay. On the Charlton CEA website, charlton.com, charltoncea.com, you have the program details for changeover. You have a page in there for anybody who wants to enroll in the program, who is not in the program right now. Right now, you're running about 84% of eligible consumers in the program, which is a good number. Okay.
Out of curiosity, what are the stats for Millbury and Oxford? Do you have-
Excuse me?
What are the stats for Millbury and Oxford? Do you have?
Millbury is pretty close to what you are here. Unfortunately, Oxford is much lower. The reason for that is that they have a very, when the program came out, they had a very active social media presence. And unfortunately, there was a lot of misinformation put out over their social media channels, and a lot of people opted out. So they're about 65%.
Okay.
So they're way below you and way below Millbury. But we expect that once this letter, and they're going to get a copy of this letter as well. We expect that a lot of those people who listen to that misinformation initially will probably enroll in the program.
Great, thanks.
Yeah.
To the chair.
And this just gives you the website, the enrollment in the program, either through the website or by calling a NextEra Energy at that 800 number. And essentially, as I say, we're very pleased with the program. We're very happy with the way it's going. We expect it to continue to do well, although we have to put in a disclaimer that we can't guarantee future savings. Although this aggregation and all our aggregations in Massachusetts have saved their participants money.
Ms. Grondowski?
Yeah, on your letter that you're going to send out, under the local green section, it says that the solar, wind, and the other facilities of where this clean energy is coming from are located in New England. Do you know specifically where some of the facilities are located? Like what state, and how many of them might be in Massachusetts directly or no?
Most of them are in Massachusetts. There may be one or two of them in Rhode Island. I can send Mr. Mayfield the town a map of those facilities.
I would like that. I don't know if anyone else cares, but.
Yeah, please.
Yeah.
You wouldn't mind.
Thank you.
Thanks, Alan.
Okay. Any other questions?
No, I'm good.
No, I think that's it.
No, good.
Thank you.
Thank you for the
Thank you.
presentation.
Thanks, John.
I'll-
See you in a few years.
Yeah, so,
Hopefully before that.
Thanks for the savings.
Oh, you're welcome.
before we move on to our first one under new business, I will point out that, sure, now Ms. Ceccarini arrives. We're not going to repeat everything nice we said about you earlier. However, we are very sad to hear about the loss of Charlton and your impending retirement, but we do wish you the best.
I'm sadder than David is because we compete on everything.
He's lying.
But it's the same.
It's ridiculous.
It's like we're children.
This letter that's going out, is it only going to the people who are in the aggregate now, or is it going to all the people in the town of Charlton?
It'll be going only to participants in the program.
Only those in the program.
Yes.
So if someone is not in the program, will there be information, is there information in that
Yeah,
letter to provide to them to say who to contact?
It's in the
Yes, there is.
selectman's office.
And there'll be
Isn't it
information
in
in
the Board
town
of
hall
Selectmen's
as
office?
well.
Yeah, that letter.
Okay.
Yeah.
Any other questions?
I have,
Sure.
you mentioned that we aren't always guaranteed the savings. Does that mean if the prices drop, we're frozen in at the higher amount as well? There has to be some risk, I'm assuming.
We have to state that disclaimer, although all our programs have saved money for residents. You can get out of the program anytime you want without termination fees, if you find something better.
So if by chance prices drop and we're locked in at your rate, you can leave. the
You're
program.
not locked in.
Okay, and my second question is, having worked in the selectman's office and looking at the state contracts, so is this price based on the 3 towns you mentioned? Or did anyone look into whether Boston in the state level has a similar program, so we could go in on 350 towns buying power?
All right, this aggregation is just for 3 towns, okay? But we're expecting, when the contract ends this time, there'll be another, at least 3 or 4, okay, towns that can go in, and there may be more.
So you don't have the state one? Do you know if there is one?
There's none for the whole state.
Good try.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, John.
Have a good night.
You too. So that being said, and then after we berated Deb, Chief, the first item under new business,
Attached is a request from Treehouse Brewing for a common victualler license to be used during their operating hours, which are Monday through Saturday, 10 a.m. to 9 p.m., and Sunday, noon to 9. They have completed all the necessary paperwork. I would recommend the board approve this request.
Unless people have questions, so moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion?
One question?
Yep.
Hi, Kim.
she looked so hopeful, like, I'm gonna get out.
I mean, I said something written after you guys.
No need.
No, I want to ask a question. I know that you guys are going to, I've heard and I've seen, you're going to be serving coffee.
Correct.
Is that the only thing that the common vic is for the coffee?
It's for our coffee, correct.
Okay, just wanted to check.
And it's coffee that we roast in-house at Treehouse, so it's pretty fun.
So I have heard. I look forward to trying it.
Awesome, thank you.
Okay.
Any other questions?
Nope, that's it. I just wanted to know if it was just for the coffee.
Just for the coffee. Correct.
Okay.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Baltimore?
Figured Bill would want to know if he could get a burger and a beer there, that's all.
Oh, trust me, just one, I just want one.
Why had I ever none of it?
I had to.
We did, it was pretty good. All right, so, no more,
No.
all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Chair votes aye, motion carries unanimously. Chief, next item?
Next item is the Civilian Traffic Commission. I believe Mike McGrath is here. We need you.
Good try, Mike.
This letter is way too long for me to, do you need a copy of this?
No, I memorized it.
How long did that take, Mike?
31 years, that I could grow it, so.
Since his retirement, that's what he's
Yes,
done.
yes.
Congratulations.
This is my, I don't have to shave every day anymore. So, the letters that was sent to you from the civilian, excuse me, Civilian Traffic Commission were as a result of discussions at our meetings. There is one that was brought up in regards to do a traffic softening survey for the town. Although we discussed financially it may be not feasible to do, the majority of the board wanted to present that to the selectmen as an option. So we obviously went forward with that. The second one is actually the one that's a little bit more to point, that we found over the last couple of years, that although we've had some great ideas and we've gone forward with some and had a lot of discussions in regards to what's going on in town, our ability as a kind of a think tank to do this is limited. We have discussed that we certainly not going to even, pretend to tell Jerry Foskett what to do with the roads and how to do them. And that what we've discussed, we've found that we've had to go outside the committee in order to talk about financing or to talk to other department heads, whether it be the police department or the DPW now, in regards to approaching the subjects that we brought up, whether it be signage or traffic lights or whatever it might be. Certainly the DOT, Mass DOT, if any discussions came up about Route 20, as you all know, is a very daunting task to get them to, even recognize that Route 20 is a highway in town without a lot of bureaucracy. So we found that we're kind of running into a lot of roadblocks, pun intended, that we're dealing with within the Traffic Commission. And that, the other letter, other than the traffic softening letter, pretty much addressed that we're looking to either disband or reorganize the Traffic Commission to include those people who have a little bit more say in financing and the actual operation of the town roads and signage and so on, whether it be with someone from FinCom, someone from the board, your board, or certainly Jerry Foskett or someone appointed by him. That we're finding that we have some really great discussions, and there have been a lot of citizen input. But we're finding that once we've come up with these ideas, then we have to kind of restate them to the appropriate agencies or departments. And that's where we've kind of run into a problem. That what we're end up doing is rehashing what we've talked about, who we've been able to talk to, before we can even go forward. So it's kind of have a meeting, bring it out to someone else, bring it back to the meeting, bring it back out to someone else, and we're kind of spinning our wheels, once again, pun intended, that we're going to be looking to possibly reorganize, and I don't even know if there is time within their schedules to be a part of the program, to be a part of that committee. And if not, then we find that we're stalled.
Through the chair. First of all, Mike, thanks very much to you and to the Traffic Advisory Committee. You've done some great work already. You've identified a lot of the problem areas that we have. So on the one item, you identified Stafford Street and Center Depot Road, Stafford Street and Brookfield Road, and Dresser Hill Road, Saundersdale Road, and Schoolhouse Road. I think, Mr. Chair, if we have the acting town administrator send a letter to District 3 to the district highway director, asking Mr. Lorien if he could have the traffic section just take a look at these intersections for us, and just give us a game plan of what they could foresee that we could do to help that out. I think that they would be, they would act on something like that for us.
Stafford Street and Center Depot Road doesn't incorporate any town highways, but Brookfield Road being Route 31 and Dresser Hill does.
They'll still help, Mike.
Yeah.
They'll help.
But,
We send it to
John,
Barry.
we need a motion for that? Just ask.
No, if we just
Chief,
ask
can
the
you do
chief to
that?
do that.
Yeah, I'm okay with that.
And then, Mike, what would the traffic advisory committee suggest for stakeholders being there? DPW?
Well, DPW, absolutely. I mean,
Okay.
Jerry Foskett is the person that you'd have to go through. Someone in regards to kind of someone to give us direction in regards to financing, whether it would be feasible to do a townwide, or even if we limit it to certain intersections and streets, study in regards to traffic softening actions in regards to that. We have no idea what these monies would cost us, and that would be, Jerry might be able to give a better idea as to, what something like that would happen. So, and then obviously, we have no budget, we have no voting power or anything like that. We're, it's everything we do is non-binding, so maybe, I don't know if someone has a free afternoon or evening in their schedule, that they would be able to, from this board, be able to also look at what might be feasible. You guys have a thumb of the pulse of what's going on in regards to financing and the direction of the town as far as the master plan, and also that that would definitely help within the committee itself.
So through the chair, probably, I would say, the DPW director or his assignee or appointee, the town administrator and/or their appointee for the financial end of it, and the police department, I believe, is represented already.
Yes.
And the planning board, I think the town planner and the planning board have, they actually do traffic studies and traffic count, so they know, you know, they're as familiar as anybody in the town with what's going on, more familiar, especially of what's going to, of what is going to, you know, come down the road.
Right, and that's where we found it. There was a lot of good ideas, there's a lot of great discussions, like I said, citizens have come in and brought up some of the points that they've needed to address for traffic concerns in their neighborhoods. But we also need to, you know, certainly be able to do something more than say, geez, that's a great idea, let me get back in touch with you, you know?
And yeah, I, for one, really appreciate what you guys have done already, and in conjunction with the traffic enforcement officer, I think we've seen a lot of improvement.
And although I have recently retired, most of our discussions were statistic-driven and numbers-driven. And the number, if I'm correct, and I no longer dabble in the computer at the station anymore, but the number of traffic accidents has decreased, although still more than one per day on average. The number of accidents has decreased over this last year in which the traffic officer has been assigned.
That's excellent.
So, and there's only supposition as far as the correlation between that, but certainly, you know, if people understand that they're going to come through town and they're going to be driving in an erratic manner or an unlawful manner, that, you know, we take our enforcement seriously, that word's going to get out. So it has decreased, although obviously not to zero, but I don't think we could ever get that. But with the implementation of that through, you know, through the chief of police, getting that officer there has decreased it. And, you know, to put in a plug for him, more guys would, you know, give us greater yields. You know, so I mean, if you can get more people who are dedicated to those specific tasks, I mean, we're not a small cow town anymore. We certainly could use, you know, more officers during the course of certain shifts to be able to address that.
Yeah, through the chair, I mean, I completely echo what John said, but I think it also points to a larger issue that the town is going to have in the upcoming years. It's our overall infrastructure. The reality is, when we talked around sidewalks a bit ago, I know the planning board is still pursuing their grant with the state, that I probably had 5 or 6 different emails saying, you know, I would like sidewalks here, 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 these need to be repaired, et cetera. We had that wonderful presentation on bridges and culverts a while ago. I think we just need to prioritize accordingly, because even on the bridge, and again, I'm using the word culvert, I think there were culverts at the time, that there was millions of dollars of an ask just for that. Sidewalks alone is gonna be multiple millions of dollars. I know, I think a couple months back, we received an email from a nice woman, I think it was down by Buffalo, around some trash around,
Schoolhouse?
yeah, was it schools? Yeah, it was, but basically, long story short, it was the same idea of how can we improve the road conditions so that people aren't just tossing trash, out the window. So, whereas I'm completely in favor of doing what we're doing, and again, I completely agree with what John, Mike, what you're saying, I think we as a town need to have a larger conversation sooner than later around how our overall infrastructure needs fit into our overall capital planning.
Right, and that's once again where we came back to the point where the members of the Traffic Commission don't have the level of authority to be able to even address sidewalks, culverts, and so on. And that, although, we might have a great idea, we're not Jerry Foster. Jerry says, well, yeah, I was doing that, however, you need to consider this aspect as well, which we don't know what his plan is, and, we certainly don't want to even be misconstrued as trying to step on his toes. That's definitely not our position, but, that's why someone, either he or someone from his department could certainly help out and help guide the discussion and, to a kind of a realistic objectives.
Yeah, so I'd say, at least in the short to medium term, let's reach out to Barry to see what he can do around these more high-impact sections, because we all know Stafford Street's a disaster. Everyone, I think can agree on that, one way or another. And then, again, I like, John, your idea around having a smaller committee, assuming that the planning board chair would be amenable and having someone from the planning department sit in on it. And then, let's start talking again in May and then the spring to figure out maybe a much larger plan about what's needed.
And reconstitute the committee at maybe the next meeting.
Yeah, exactly.
And the timing will work out because the new TA will be starting.
That's what I'm thinking too.
The other aspect of that is, if we don't necessarily want to add another 5, 6 members and make it a committee that just won't be able to get stuff done, that the redefining of that committee, that although the other members of the board and I have put a lot of time into it, if, I'm not going to, cry if I'm not on that committee and saying, geez, I've been there since the beginning, because certainly the objective is to get something accomplished. And if we can get, to reevaluate not only what we do when we talk about traffic problems, to reevaluate the committee itself, to be able to say what would be more effective.
It works for me.
Through the chair?
Ms. Noble?
I remember when we formed this traffic commission, the Civilian Traffic Commission, was because we were getting so many complaints about Route 20 and the accidents and Stafford Street, which I live off of, it's always a problem. I would not be in favor of dissolving this committee as much as I would be in favor of restructuring it and giving it a mission statement. And I think we should probably put that on our agenda for our next meeting.
My suggestion was
And I
also,
appreciate you being so honest and coming forward and pushing this.
right, and not to slight any of the members that have been there and have done a lot of work these last couple of years, is to have a finite, and there is no, when we get appointed, we didn't have a June 30th rehire, reappoint date. And that to certainly, if you're going to do a reorganization, is to have the current committee members reapply to also be a part if they feel strongly they want to be in there. I don't want to, slight them, but I also think that, people in the right positions are going to be able to make, a little bit more concrete, once again, intended decision in regards to, where we go from here.
No, I would agree. I think we need something far more formalized.
Lovely, Deb.
Anything else? Thank you.
Sorry to be a pain.
You're not a pain.
We're factoring in, or I don't know how this applies. You got the siting board for the Charlton LNG plant, who has a NEC company, has their head buried in the sand, thinking that using the intersection is 12, 169, and 20 as a non-existent problem. And somehow this has to be addressed through Randy Benson, who's an intervener, or other interveners, because there's a deadline, but I think next week, where any issues that should be addressed to the siting board concerning the town.
So I appreciate that, but that's not under the auspices of the traffic commission.
Well, it's traffic.
But I know where you're going, but the LNG issue is separate from the civilian traffic commission.
But I think everyone agrees with you, let's put it that way.
Yeah.
Yes.
The issue
So
is, the traffic's gonna come from these trucks that are coming into town.
Right, so I appreciate that, though we really can't talk
I
about
don't know how-
LNG
that's what
without
I'm
it being on the agenda, and people who want to talk about it aren't here because they weren't notified.
No,
But
no, but I don't know if it fit in because he's traffic, so.
that's all right, but thank you. Anything else?
No, I'm good. Thanks, Mike.
Thanks, Mike, and
Thank you.
we will pursue that. So Chief, we then go on to the next item, which is municipal.
Kurt's here. Okay. Attached is a letter from Kurt Meskis, Building Commissioner, Zoning Enforcement Officer, on behalf of the Municipal Building Committee, providing an update of various projects and needs for the community and municipal offices.
Evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'm just sort of helping. Turn on. As the chairman of the Municipal Building Committee, and as you know, we have been working for a long, long time on various projects throughout the town. And we're going through some transitions here, both in administration and various things. And the committee thought it was time that we come before the board and offer some questions, opinion, guidance, and information. So we appreciate everything you folks have done by supporting the growth of the town, and we have once before sat before you and encouraged the construction of a public safety building. We need to continue down the development of a facilities maintenance department so that our department heads and building heads are doing their jobs and not being torn by having to take care of maintenance tasks on a daily basis. There has been discussion, and will probably continue to be discussion, about the further build-out of the Department of Public Works and what goes in there and what facilities are needed as that goes forward. The construction of a new public safety building will free up the space at 85 Masonic Home Road that could now be, once a new public safety building was built, free up that space for additional municipal purposes, municipal offices, and other needs that the community has had and have been brought forward through various studies and requests of various departments from time to time. The reconfiguration of 85 Masonic Home Road will need funding at some point, and that will vary depending upon what goes there and what does, but there is the real event that we will have to put an elevator in that building because it is a two-story building, and do some other costly reconfiguration so exiting is proper for other uses. The Municipal Building Committee is going to continue to work with the municipal departments and the Energy Advisory Committee to achieve the 20% reduction as required by the Green Communities Act. And as we notice, we have completed through grant funding the changing of all the fluorescent tubes in this building to LED lighting, updating all the fixtures, and a number of fixtures and lighting tubes were changed at the library. We're still working with sewer department and purveyors to get VFDs, variable frequency drives, and new motors installed down there, all as part of the grant that we recently received. The next goal we would like to see, as far as the grant money that we have to apply for and obtain, is to work to change the town to LED street lighting. We have made some inquiries into that. There are some requirements the National Grid wants to impose upon the town, and because those requirements were not palatable at the time they were presented, we're looking at that in our next round of funding and hopefully be able to sort that issue out. Additionally, the Selectmen, Finance Committee, and Town Administrator should provide guidance eventually on the disposition of the existing fire headquarters, whether or not that remains in the town's custody and what that might be repurposed for. If so, Station 2, which has been talked about being used as a parking area for the center of town, and Station 2.5, or whatever we want to call it, across the street, is on leased land, and my understanding is that the owner of that leased land wants to take over that building once the fire department vacates the Quonset hut by the thing. So we provided a list and a 1, 2, 3 priority with some budget numbers. Most of these are educated guesses based on things we've done before. On the next page, we need to do something, and we have been working towards reconfiguring and finding new town hall office space and proper size offices as we've grown staff in offices and people are somewhat shoehorned in closets and various spaces. We did embark on a program quite a while ago, about 3 years ago, to build an archival storage building. We had designs for that. We put that project out to bid, and that number was very unpalatable for a fireproof closet, and we looked at some other potential options, but we would have to design those options and bid those out. We are making strides forward with our network. We are very fortunate, I understand, to have just gotten a grant for a little over $90,000 for backup equipment. Thank you to Micronet and Kara for writing that grant. We're waiting for that formal award and flushing out what hoops or requirements there are to spend that money. But digitization of records has always been a goal of mine, and hopefully in technology, because we're storing a lot of paper that's hard to access. And if we can digitize it, we can search it better and everything, but that's a moving target. Some paper we have to keep forever, and we will need to do archival storage. We've talked about, we have to evaluate whether or not sprinkling the town hall for fire protection is a needed goal. It's not required, but it might be a worthwhile investment for protection. The Cemetery Commission has asked several times for a new building, or some sort of consolidated building where they can have some office space and be closer to their stuff. That plays into the discussion with whether or not we build other buildings or we incorporate them, how we incorporate that into the DPW as that continues to grow down there. The library takes care of itself pretty much. I know that they're coming forward in their budget request for some capital items, some painting, some other things they funded, and we had ice problems along the edge of that roof, and they funded electric ice melt cables there, and while that project was being done, we found that there's deficiencies in the gutters, which they're sagging, they're 100 years old. But to fix those gutters, which are copper integral gutters, you have to take the first 3 feet of roof off, so that's a considerable project. So far this year, Ms. Hanson has reported that the icing problem has been mitigated by the ice melt cables, but of course, we haven't had a lot of snow either. There's a couple of buildings that sometimes we forget about. The town owns the number 2 schoolhouse. 1986, there was a concerted effort by the citizens of Charlton and the Friends of Number 2 Schoolhouse to do a considerable amount of work and restore that building from a very dilapidated state. And since that time, we have basically spent nothing on that building. It is falling again into a state of disrepair and needs some historic type preservation, and that would require funding, one, to get someone to write the scope of work that's an expert in what needs to be done, and then two, fund that. There's a building on Fitzgerald Road called the Old Ice House. It was part of a subdivision over there. The subdivision was originally called Donner and Blitzen, and I'm trying to remember what the real names of the road are. We have a citizen that leases that from the town for a small amount, and is required by that lease to put minimal maintenance into it, but eventually we may have to do something. But I just want to make people aware that we do own this building over on Fitzgerald Road that nobody thinks too much about. The police station roof, we're on a building, chief's 30 years now. It's going to be coming. We got roofs on these buildings that will be coming again, so, sometime, but we didn't even get that far on the, put them on that. And, we may want to consider a medium priority to do some generator work at the Old Town Road complex where the highway department, stores their salt and has equipment, where we have the animal control facility to do that. So we put these before you. I'm coming before your joint meeting tomorrow night to talk to the FinCom about the same thing. But we just wanted to make sure that, you folks were aware as transition has occurred, and we've been trying to do things, that these are things out there that need to be, the community needs to be aware of, you need to be aware of, and we need to continue to see if we can fund some of these projects.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, through you?
Yeah.
Kurt, do you have first of all, thanks to you and the committee for pulling all this together. It's really helpful to get it down one page. Do you have an order of magnitude estimate on what it would take to reconfigure the police department into town hall offices?
The first thing we would need to do is decide what programs we're going to go there. Because there are various potential schemes. The senior center continues to ask for increased space. Would it be a good move to put the senior center down there and maybe chip in down there and keep all the government functions in this building? And that would be a certain price point, probably the higher price point. If, as some have suggested, maybe land use goes down there and could make use of the building, maybe pretty much how it's set up, a less expensive thing, but you would have to decide, I would look to this board to decide the direction of, do you want to split government functions between two buildings? So
Yeah, no, thank you for that, I appreciate it. Now, I suppose for the board, I think we have to have a discussion around, what are we actually going to do with that building? I know there's always been a assumption that it was going to be office building. However, if the board, first of all, I'm not convinced that that's the right answer. Yeah, so, I mean, but again, I want to see what the true cost benefit is, to see what it would take. And Kurt, the reason I was asking is that hypothetically, I'm literally making up a number. If it costs $2 million to rehab, to be able to say X, Y, or Z offices go in there, as far as I'm concerned, that money should be rolled into whatever ask is part of the public safety building. And let's not go for 28.5 or whatever number it's going to be, and then come back a year or two later and say, oh, by the way, you know how we moved the police department? Now we want to do town hall offices with it. Now we have to ask you for another debt exclusion. So I think we need to have a much larger conversation and take, obviously, the work that Kurt and his committee has done is to say, do we want to use it for town hall or some type of town municipal offices or work? And then two, how are we going to present that funding? Because I don't think it should ever be standalone, because I think that's unfair to taxpayers. If we really are going to push a public safety complex, knowing that that's going to be vacant, before that happens, this board has to make a decision about where we want to go with it, and I'm not saying we'd ever be dishonest with the taxpayers, but be honest with them to say, here's what it really means. So that's my 2 cents for the night on that.
And really, the amount of money that you have to dump into it is gonna be by what program you send down there.
Exactly.
If we put inspectional services and land use planning down there, then you still have the outstanding things that you have to do here, which is, roof, the basic maintenance for any structure that you own that's depreciated over a period of time. But your internals, basically gonna stay the same. Might have to rip down a partition or two, but, so really, as Bill's saying, the board has to make a decision as to, where we're gonna go with it. The municipal building committee has a lot of, has put a lot of thought and time into that. So I think that at some point in time, we need to have a conversation with them, on the side as to where we do go with that.
I'm usually objective going into these things, but my initial lean, until shown otherwise, is we lease it or sell it and get as much revenue as we possibly can out of it. Now, if someone can make a better case to me, I'm all into listening.
If you're going to keep it as town offices and you're not going to reconfigure it, then you have to decide who gets the jail cells for their office space.
And Bill.
I think we could store paper clips in there.
And part of the other part of that conversation is, do we market it? And then the money that we see back from that, we're gonna end up, at some point in time, you're gonna end up putting an addition on this place or reconfiguring this
Absolutely,
building.
yeah. Yeah, it has to be a much larger conversation.
That's a 10-year plan.
Yeah, and that's honestly, the five of us, that's our responsibility. Six of us were down here.
That was, the committee felt that was important to get this information.
Oh, absolutely.
Before you at this time, because you are making some very large decisions about the direction of the assets of this community.
Because if we're thinking public safety complex come in May, this, as far, at least my 2 cents, this has to be a part of that conversation.
And do you pedal?
Yeah.
I'm with you. I'm not in the real estate business.
So, anyway, that can be a future convo, but just something to think about. Thank you for that, Kurt.
We just had a discussion on the planning board about how much we're saving with the new bylaw redo. Like, we're way under, and that we may want to start with the master plan, but this discussion is actually a perfect discussion also to start meshing it with the master plan. And maybe we need to kind of
Absolutely.
have a joint initial discussion.
I'm all in.
Awesome.
Okay?
So until tomorrow night?
Yeah, thank you.
You're welcome.
Oh, hey, Kurt?
Yes,
You're
sir.
going to talk about the facilities technician and that we talked about the other day at the bill?
Well,
building committee?
we put that in here, that we said that we believe that we need to build out the facilities maintenance department. And the level of person that we hire to fill the vacant position here at this building, and now we have a vacant position similar at the library, how I think it's an administration function between the new TA and Chief Maxfield. But we need to hire someone who at least is handy. And maybe, some of our staff got a little farther ahead than they were, should have. But that is the ongoing discussion is to develop a system that we can share custodial staff between buildings. So people go on vacation, people get hurt or whatever. And then start consolidating buying and maintenance and everything so that, department heads or building heads, so yes, some of it needs to belong to that department, but sometimes they need assistance with stuff.
Thank you.
Thanks, Kurt.
Thank you.
Thanks, Kurt.
Yep, take it away.
Attached is the fiscal year 2021 budget calendar for your consideration. As required by the Charlton bylaw, the annual town election will be held on the first Saturday in the month of May, May 2nd, 2020, and the annual town meeting will be held on the third Monday in May, May 18th, 2020. Budget requests have been sent to departments as provided by the Finance Director. You are requested to approve the 2021 budget calendar as presented. If this calendar is acceptable, the board will open the annual town meeting warrant tonight as well. The warrant is scheduled to close March 10th, 2020.
Through the chair. I make a motion that we approve the budget calendar.
You have a motion, do we have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion passes, it's unanimous.
And through the chair,
Yep.
I make a motion that we open the annual town meeting warrant tonight.
Second.
Second.
I'm sorry, Deb.
Motion is second, any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Chair votes aye, motion carries, it's unanimous.
Although I feel bad for soon-to-be town administrator Golis, because the week of February 3rd, the department budgets begin their review with the TA, so.
Yes. Jump right in.
Exactly.
Yeah, because I'm not going to be any help.
Be nice to him.
I'm going over the hill.
Oh, no, there's no doubt.
You're going to the other side.
It's gonna be like smoke behind you, like in the cartoons.
The planning board is asked to be placed on tonight's agenda to discuss possible alternative methods of taxing commercial ground-mounted solar arrays and their associated energy storage systems. Selectwoman Spiewak was in attendance at their last meeting, recommended they come to the board to have this discussion as there are two pending applications before them at this time. The discussion with the board may impact these two applications and more in the future as the solar arrays get modified with energy storage systems. We have also Finance Director and the Assessor here, and Planning Board Chair.
And I'm going to ask Lori Degnan also to, just because she's such a great resource with the solar stuff. So I want to clarify that the wording is a little bit off. The word taxing shouldn't have been here. Randy, when he sent the email, he may have, and I'm sure it's my fault. We were leaning more toward the changing of the way we do bonds and, possibly a licensing fee. Taxing isn't our game. We have the professional. We have the professional. So, when the planning board, and we did have an engineer review these estimates, when we were kind of doing all of these approvals for these solar farms, the bonds that we required were so low compared to what we're seeing other towns do. And it's over now, there's not much we can do about that. But now that, and we suspect that all of them will be coming back to now put in these giant batteries, we're hoping that there's a way that we can kind of go back and fix that situation with the new, because they'll have to come in for modified site plans, that we can increase the bonds and perhaps, I don't know the legality, a licensing fee.
Yeah.
And I wanted to get kind of your input on that.
Through the chair. That's, Patsy, that's all the planning board's purview. So what happens is, you can either use their estimate of what they're saying their equipment is worth and what the tear down of that equipment if they abandon it is gonna cost, because that's what the bond is for. It's for the demolition of a cell phone tower or a solar array or a wind turbine, if we had a wind turbine. The bond is for the removal of said item if they abandon it. That's what that bond's for. So if you believe that the bonds have been, if they've been lowballing the figure, you can either, at their expense, go out and have somebody reappraise it as to what it's gonna cost to demolish it. You can have Mike Andrade do it as, under peer review, when they come back in, okay? And you can reset their bonding amount. I believe if you read the rules and regulations from the planning board, that you can adjust the bond rating for inflation or deflation or any changes that they have made for it. And and I think they don't even have to come back for an addendum on the plan. You know, if they weren't coming back for the battery storage thing, I think it's still within your purview to adjust that. But that bond is just for the demolition of the facility, if they abandon it. That's what that bond is for.
I guess we're looking at what other towns, so for example, West Brookfield, they do it by megawatt. It's $100,000, is $100,000 per megawatt automatically. And that was, it actually went through their town meeting and it got approved by the AG. These are big fees, and again, we know what the planning board can do, but I'm looking for your insight and your ideas. I have a whole table of resources in front of me. We had the discussion of maybe making it cash bonds. That way we'll be able to pull down on them if we have to get an attorney. Again, looking for any insight that you could provide.
So if, first what you have to do is you have to look at what your rules and regs say the bond is for, okay? If we're gonna adjust the rules and regulations to add something else to it, then we're gonna have to, we'll have to do that. But I would have Randy look at it, say, the current bonding language is for removal, okay? If you're trying to cover it with something else, that's something that we have to add to the language. If you believe that they don't have enough, if you believe that we don't have enough money in the bond to do what the bond says it's supposed to do, then we go back after them for more money, and I believe that's in our purview. But if you're trying to do something else, if you're trying to get a different permitting fee based on megawatts, is that the other side of this?
We're looking for any options right now. I think on some of these giant farms, we have like $30,000 in the insurance bond. So if they just stop paying their premium, nothing's there. The town's at risk, and we're again looking for ideas and insight. And Laura, you can please.
No, it's if they abandon their bond, if they don't pay for their bond, they're in default of their site plan, okay? And the rules and regulations that you've used when you put your site plan on. You start legal recourse against them for that. So that's.
Then the town has to cover the attorney cost up front because there's nothing to pull down on. And then it just seems like a very messy process, and we're just trying to prevent any liability. If we have cash bonds, we don't have to worry about it. We're gonna pull it down and we're gonna fight. And right now, the amounts of bonds we have, I think the estimates, the solar companies provided them, there was never a time where that Mike ever questioned their estimates. And now looking at what other people are using for estimates, ours are, I think we just trusted the companies, and this isn't Mike's expertise. He just kind of said, all the numbers, the math works, and even the amount that we think they're gonna recycle for this, it may cost to actually get rid of this stuff. There may not even be any recycle value, and again,
The industry has been
inundated with information provided by the solar companies. So there's very, very little information out there that we can follow. But I've looked at all kinds of different bonds. They have no hazardous waste removal. They have nothing to dispose of the panels.
It's through the chair. The bond is to cover the demolition and removal and disposal of everything, no matter what's in there, okay? If you think that your bond mechanism that you use to set the amount that they're putting up for the bond is deficient, then we address that, okay? And you guys address that, okay? If you think that that you need to go up on them, I believe that's within your purview. You don't need anything from us here. You do that with Randy and the planning board, and you set it up, okay? But that's, so that bond issue is, you guys can take care of that. That's not.
We know.
Mr. Chair, if I could.
We came for insight. We want to work together. We know how sensitive the majority of this board is with solar, so we wanted to, again, any conversation, any suggestions, any ideas.
So Ms. Dagnan?
If I could, so you're saying that we don't need the opportunity of them coming in for a change in their site plan by adding the batteries in order to readdress bonds?
I believe what I'm going to suggest that you do is review your bond language in your rules and regulations, your subdivision rules and regulations, specifically as it's written for solar and wind power, okay? And cell towers, I believe, are in there too. And that will tell you exactly what you can do.
It's only a percentage, it's a small percentage of
Yeah,
increase.
so the town of West
if we have
Brookfield
to-
did get
if you have to
100,000 up
change your
front.
rules and regulations, I don't think that, and you'll have to ask Randy, I don't think that that's a vote of the townspeople. I believe rules and regulations and fees can be changed by a vote of the planning board. And correct me if I'm wrong, Bill.
No, John, I'm with you on that. Unless it's in zoning, that
Yeah.
actually needs a change, or, I mean,
It's not in zoning.
it really depends upon how it's set up, but I don't think that that's a problem.
So the planning board has the power to do that by themselves.
Probably.
And I appreciate you coming through, because it's better.
I mean, do you agree
it's
with
better
what
to talk.
that's what
Oh,
we're
yeah.
thinking?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Because
if you think
we
we're-
we just want to make sure that if something happens, and in some cases, these landowners, they're land rich, and so the developer walks away and leaves them with all this solar farm and these batteries that are now they're a decade old and no one wants them anymore. I mean, we have to kind of have some of that responsibility and help also protect not only the town, but the landowner a little bit by making sure that we're conservative on these bonds that we're asking for.
I wholeheartedly agree, go up in your bonds.
Yeah, I mean, it's the same type of idea for a subdivision.
Yeah.
When like a road's not complete, you either have some
Yeah.
type of tri-party agreement or you have a bond. And if they don't finish it, well, then we take the bond and then we fix it ourselves.
And-
Difficult to pull those bonds. It's
And the-
difficult.
No, agreed,
and the
agreed.
pla- And the planning board, I think the planning board does a great job there of managing how many lots are released before the infrastructure is done and stuff. We haven't ended up in any of the problems that a lot of towns have, where their boards have released lots, and the town's stuck with, a $500,000 to $1 million of road left. And there's nothing there, the developer used the lots as his collateral against it. I believe we've really only had to threaten one person that we're gonna pull their bond, and then the bank stepped in, and the bank actually, they took over and they finished whatever infrastructure had to be done. But Patsy, thank you, for coming forward with it.
I actually have another question. And maybe Deb can answer this. When the property's sold, from what I understand, Zero Point is just an engineering firm representing the installer Protec Energy out of New Jersey, or Infinity out of Arizona, and then there's a clerk out of Texas. It's hard to find out who they sell to. From what I understand, they keep changing. So if that new owner did not put a bond in, is there any safeguard there for us to say, there's a new owner, where's your bond? Because we'll be going, chasing it constantly. Is there some way we can put a lien on it?
So maybe one of the corrective actions there would be when the assessors are notified that the property has been changed and the tax bill's going to somebody else, if the planning board or the town planner can be notified that has taken place, and he can, via a nice phone call or an email to start off with, and then probably certified or registered mail, that they are in default of their site plan, and the planning board's gonna take whatever action they have to take, which,
So that's after it goes through the registry of deeds.
Yeah, you
So
can't
that
do it
could take
beforehand.
time. And
Yeah.
then, that's one reason why I'd like to see $100,000 cash in an account up front. And other towns are doing it. They're all watching us right now. So because of that, that just continues as the safeguard to the new owner. They add it to the $1 million that they're paying for the energy.
that's, I don't know.
I think it would just save us a lot of hassle from having to hire attorneys, because there's 30 of these now.
So, once again, I go back to, if you think that somebody else, rather than recreating the wheel, okay, if you think that another town has a better system of doing this, then that's what the planning board needs to look at, and, if that's what they decide they want to do for this bond issue, then change the rules and regulations, and then, notify everybody that's what's going on.
Bill?
Yeah, just for those folks at home who may not be intimate with the intricacies of decommissioning bonds and/or protective bonds, this is not around revenue generation. This really is around if something happens to the site, how is it cleaned up? And, we used the analogy before of, for like a subdivision, if those roads aren't completed, bonds can, they often have to be put up and then they can be taken to complete it. This is the same kind of idea. Patsy, I'm assuming that your board can do this on your own, but I'll go on record now saying that if you need support for whatever reason based upon the language.
I didn't know if we needed to talk to an attorney, like,
Yeah,
to kind of okay, or
yeah,
whatever.
I would
just-
hunt through it with Randy and then, talk to, whatever attorney we need.
Yeah.
But I'm all in favor of risk mitigation on this, especially knowing that this is a relatively new industry. So anything we can do to protect the town, I'm all in favor of. And if Westbrook feels doing 100,000, I'd probably recommend just doing, your typical, hey, let's take a pulse check of all the surrounding towns, come up with what seems to be a fair number that's not too onerous that would stop these things, but at the same time that they will protect us. And I'll be the first one on town meeting floor speaking forward if you need it, so.
And the reason why we're here, because this is happening, so we already have our first battery issue, and we do believe that everybody else is gonna come. And this is our chance to kind of say, now, if you want your batteries, there's a cash bond up front, and that's just how.
I'm okay with that.
kinda-
Yeah, I think everyone's on the same page, and especially, not only, as we discussed earlier, with what's going on currently, but everything we've been through and everything that's come up from the solar committee's work and everything we've discovered, it's very important. Donna?
Mention too, another option that you may have is what we did with Millennium for decommissioning, is they do a line of credit, and they have to resubmit every year.
There you go.
Is that easier for you?
Well, they manage it, but at least they'll know that
Took 2.5 years.
that the line of credit
Did
didn't come in.
salvage value, we did the whole, it's a letter of credit that sits there, and, it goes up every year based on the consumer price index, and we get notifications, so it's held in a bank. It's a lot of work, but
It's the
it's important.
safest.
I agree.
I'll have
wholeheartedly.
Randy reach out, maybe you can kind of
I
direct
have
him, and we'll work together. I just
I think that one would give you at least notification
Yeah.
that they're not paying their premium for that bond. This is a different,
And it's a good tracking for ownership changes, lease changes, all leases, they're very difficult to track.
Plus, if it's tied to CPI, that's gonna
I'm
help
the
us.
last one to find out most of the time, even when I put all my feelers out,
Right.
it's difficult.
And then if I could add, on leases, from what I understand, it's up to the landowner to work on the bond,
That's right.
not the town. So our argument was, if the solar company walks away and we're stuck with, 70,000 panels and batteries, then we put a lien on their land. What kind of value is there on back acreage with 70,000 solar modules with cadmium on them? So I think we should also let the private landowners out there that are listening, that are leasing their property to make sure that they CYA. And I asked at the meeting the other night that Zero Point provide us with a letter that says, yes, the landowner is aware that we're adding batteries. He kind of, yeah, he knows, but for our liability, if we allow this battery to be put there, and then they come back and say, we didn't know there was a battery there.
Anytime that you want to tighten up that zoning, I'm all in favor of it, so just really, that's what it comes down to.
Yeah, so actually, homeowners beware, landowners, just do your homework.
Cool.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks, all.
Thank you.
Thanks, Don.
Thanks,
Thanks, Deb.
So, Chief, we go right to the, next time is BS committee reports.
Yep.
If I can take a minute, I do want to thank you all for being so gracious and accepting the letter. I hope you did.
Oh, no, we didn't.
Actually, we didn't.
Maybe I'm speaking.
No, we just said thank you because we figured that it was more for the Board of Assessors. We didn't want to step on their toes.
Yeah,
We're gonna miss you, Dave.
we don't know what we're gonna do without you.
Granted, we have it 6 months, but that's still another story.
We'll have a good person in place, I'm sure.
Thanks, Deb.
Nothing for old business.
No, just the, committee, right?
Yep.
Yeah, and actually, through the chair, if the committee doesn't mind, I was hoping to present tonight with one of the co-chairs, and since they're not here, I will put it off to our next meeting, where we'll have a lot more information. But we did, just so you know, we did meet, we hit the ground running, very
Yeah, we
exciting,
believe you.
and,
No.
oh, you know, you've seen the emails.
I know, I've seen them all. They've actually been quite busy, and you know what, I will tell you this. Whatever you're going to see, I promise you, I've seen all the emails. Karen has been very busy. They've been working very hard.
Thank you. So, well, back on the agenda for
All
for
right,
our next
so,
meeting.
Chief, we'll add this to the agenda for the next meeting, and we'll move on to the student select person report.
Hello. Because the December meeting was very, very brief, I do have two reports, one for the end of December and one for January, if that's all right. So for my December report, December 11th, seniors Olivia Sharapa and Hannah Guerin received the 2019-2020 Massachusetts Association of School Superintendents Certificate of Academic Excellence Award at the Dudley Charlton School Committee meeting, and at the same time, I myself also received the Principal Leadership Award. Hannah and Olivia were recognized January 7th at the Worcester County Superintendents Association Annual Scholars Luncheon. On December 16th, the National Honor Society and the advisor, Mr. Stefan's English classes, mailed 120 holiday letters to deployed soldiers in the Middle East and Africa. It was in an effort to just make a small act of kindness because they were there for the holidays. December 19th was the band concert and Tri-M induction ceremony, and the Tri-M Music Honor Society welcomed 30 new members to their ranks. The National Honor Society's annual December toy drive resulted in over 600 toys collected and $500 in donations. And also in December, the Student Council collected items for local homebound seniors in Dudley and Charlton, and were able to make 20 baskets in total to surprise local elders during the holidays with items such as hand warmers, canned soup, snacks, blankets, travel-sized toiletries, games, etc. In January, the next music parents meeting will be held on February 5th at 6 p.m. The drama club had their production for the winter this past weekend called the Westing Game. Midterm exams begin this Friday, and it'll also be a half day for all DCRSD students. January 14th is the Booster Club meeting at Shepherd Hill. The Shepherd Hill girls basketball will be playing Westford Academy Tuesday night at 7 p.m. January 12th. Just this past weekend, Shepherd Hill's first ever co-ed 4x400 relay race was run by our track teams, and they placed third. This weekend, the show choirs will compete in Lowell at the Mill City Show Choir Festival, performing their shows Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure, A Bird in a Cage, and Legend. January 24th is Quinsigamond Community College Decision Day number 2. And the 31st and February 1st will be the Central Mass Show Choir Festival at Shepherd Hill. Ski Club just began. Super Bowl Sunday grinders are also on sale for $7 to support the Foreign Language Club. And they'll be taking orders until January 24th, and they get delivered February the 2nd. February 1st is the Winter Percussion Show. QCC Decision Day 3 is February 6th. February 11th, there's a course selection breakfast at 9 a.m. for any parents of 8th graders who want to talk about their upcoming freshmen with guidance. And February 21st is the Shepherd Hill Cheerleading Invitational. Any questions?
A lot going on.
There's a lot happening.
Congratulations on it.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
well done.
Yes, congratulations. A question?
Yes.
In case the listening public wants to know, if they would like to order a grinder for Super Bowl Sunday, how would they do that?
You can either grab an order form from a student who goes to Shepherd Hill, or you can contact Mary Perangeli through the DCRSD website. Her email is listed under Departments in Foreign Language.
Thank you.
Actually, Mr. Chairman, nothing for Anya, but as usual, she jogged my memory on something, so thank you, Anya. Looking back at the calendar for the budget season, I know there was a really good meeting before I got elected last year. I think Deb was kind enough to moderate between the two, I think it was at Charlton Middle, between the two boards of selectmen in Dudley and Charlton, finance committees, et cetera.
Yes, it was a very large meeting
Yes.
at the school.
Yeah,
Yes.
and again, I thought you did a great job moderating that. My question is, do we want to do that this year during budget season? The reason I mention it, because I know, and let's all be honest, there's been, let's just say, confusion between that 2 versus 3 year plan, and also what their expectations are for budgeting this year. I think if we can get ahead of that a little bit.
You were at that meeting?
I was.
I apologize if I had an attitude.
But it may just be something to think about, to start to have those conversations now. It doesn't necessarily even have to be with our colleagues on the Dudley Board of Selectmen. May not be a bad idea, but I would think getting everyone in the same room to figure out what we're doing this year and even potentially next year, because I also know that they have that capital plan that they're looking at. We may want to consider doing that to head off any issues.
Yeah. Through the chair?
Or at least make sure they're all out.
Yeah, honestly, yeah.
Ms. Noble.
Through the chair, looking at the calendar, we might want to think about the weeks of February 10th or 17th for such a meeting.
That's a good idea, Deb. For those folks, that's a continued review of department budget submissions by town administrator, which you would think that might include, or at least.
Do we know, when did we do it last year? We do it every year. It's been a thing for quite a number of years now, but, and if you said it,
No, I honestly, I mean, obviously it was prior to May, I don't remember when.
It was a very large meeting.
Yeah. February, March, maybe?
It was probably in February.
Okay.
Because.
March 20th?
March 20th, thank you. You couldn't be there. You were probably out plowing a road, which is why I ended up chairing.
So we may, again, we may want to consider that again,
I think-
just in case.
I think we should, and can we reach out to them now, because it's going to take
And
planning on
find out
their
what
part?
they work
And
on.
I know, Bill, you had suggested maybe not including Dudley, but I think it's important.
well, yeah.
It's
Oh,
all
no, I just
listed.
didn't want to overstep. I mean,
Yeah, okay.
they're more, yeah, I mean, it'd be very cordial. I just want to make sure that, yeah, well, it'll probably be cordial.
Maybe.
I will mention
Maybe.
that
It was okay.
Finance Committee Chair and myself have already met once with the new superintendent and
Oh, cool.
business
Yeah.
manager from Dudley Charlton, so we've already.
Oh, that's good.
Thank
We've
you for-
already met, but we're kind of deferring until the new administrator starts.
Again, I'm not foreseeing any problems, but
No.
something about being proactive.
But I do want to say thank you for being
Yeah,
proactive
Donna,
and
thanks.
letting us know about that. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Cool.
Chief?
Town Administrator's Report, I'll be quick. In Chapter 90 apportionment, we received notice from Mass DOT that the legislature recently approved the supplemental budget that Governor Baker filed, including an additional $20 million in Chapter 90 local transportation aid funding for fiscal year 2019. Charlton's Chapter 90 apportionment for fiscal year 2020 is $688,168, which includes monies previously approved in Chapter 16 of the Acts of 2019 and the new supplemental amount of $62,561. Vehicle surplus bids on October 24th and November 21st of 2019, 15 vehicles were put out as surplus bids. The total earned from both bids was $3,519.10. The Maya fiscal year 20 risk management grant with concentration on property, we received in the amount of $6,048, which is being used to purchase flammable cabinet, thermographic camera, 2 high-visibility surveyor's vests, personal breaker lockout kit, 75 road cones, and an eye wash station. Grant award through the Department of Environmental Protection. The Recycling Committee received a $1,000 grant through the Department of Environmental Protection, which was used to purchase ceramic kitchen scrap buckets and are available for purchase in the Selectmen's office. Raffle tickets will be available at a later date for chances on an indoor-outdoor electric composter and a dual spigot rain barrel. I'd like to thank Kara Himilski for her efforts in helping to secure these grants for the town. And the Human Resource Director update, we received 9 applications. My initial discussion, we were going to wait for the new town administrator unless the board directs otherwise.
I'd rather wait.
Yeah, but just a quick question. My concern is, did we have any communication with the applicants? Because so much time has gone by, it would be nice maybe to have some follow-up, just to say
Send
we're
them an email or a
waiting.
letter acknowledging receipt of their application, and that we will follow up with them in a couple of weeks. We are simply waiting for the new town administrator to start so they can be involved in the process. That way they don't get left hanging, Karen.
Yeah, good idea.
Okay, good call.
I can do that.
Thank you, Chief.
Sir.
There's no other business? Then
Just,
the-
David, 2 very quick things from me before we close the meeting. Very quick, promise.
okay.
I'm timing them.
I know this one is quick. Oh, you want me to do it now?
You go ahead.
Okay. One, just a special bit of recognition to our friends on the library staff, as well as some members of the Board of Trustees and family and friends who helped out on the water incident that occurred before Christmas. Literally, they saved the day by going in there at 5 a.m. and shutting water off, mopping, vacuuming. I know Stefan Sage and I think where others were in there first thing in the morning getting care of this. So very well done, saved probably hundreds of thousands of dollars on that. The second thing is purely housekeeping, food for thought for this board. And it's also purely selfish. From scheduling, I know historically this board has always met every other week. Is there any interest into standardizing that, saying that, like, first and third Tuesday of every month, or second and fourth, or things like that? Just for me, for travel, it would certainly help, but we don't have to, just something to think about. Plus, I think it might help people in town to say, when exactly is it do we meet?
John?
John,
Yeah. I mean, I don't care either. I mean,
Smiling
really,
over
it really is
there.
not a huge deal. I just wanted to bring it out for discussion. We don't have to do it tonight.
I think,
I have no problem.
I don't have a problem. It's better for scheduling, of course. And I think our meeting schedule has been so frequent and erratic.
Yeah.
It's been weekly.
Yeah, it's probably weekly anyway, but it's just, I mean, we can always schedule more and/or reschedule, but again, I'm making something up. If we just had a set schedule of saying for the town and for all of the officials, first and third Tuesday of every month, that's when we meet. I don't know, I think it might, honestly, it would help me, but that's.
Whatever works for the board. I put it in Outlook as a recurring event every 2 weeks, so it's automatically populated for the next year.
Yeah.
But whatever, I'm going along with
We don't have to
whatever
talk
the
about it
board,
tonight.
whatever the
It's
board
just wanna think of it.
desires.
Well,
Just think about it.
that actually sounds good, but then I know we haven't stuck with our summer schedule, which is usually once a month,
I
right?
know, it's weekly.
But
But yeah, whatever the board
For 2
desires.
years, it's been that.
Yeah. All right, so yeah, the board, if everyone wants to,
We can talk about next meeting, whenever.
Through the chair, would that come under policy review, would we have to change a policy?
The policy that says we meet, I think, every
Yeah,
other.
probably, yeah.
It would be
Yeah, I
easy enough
guess.
to do.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'd have to change the policy.
so put that under policy review for an
Sure.
agenda.
If you don't
Yeah, for
mind.
next-
And again, I'm not gonna lose sleep if it doesn't happen, so just.
And we can always, have more meetings, like,
Yes.
That's true, that's true.
if needed, right?
Yay.
Thank you.
Anybody have anything else?
All right, so any other business now?
Nope.
The next meeting will be a special tomorrow night, January 15th, 2020, at 6:30 PM with the Finance Committee, but we're not meeting in the BOS meeting room, correct? We're meeting in the Senior Center.
Senior Center.
Senior center.
That'll be in the Senior Center tomorrow night at 6:30. And our next regular meeting will be January 28th, 2020, at 6:30 PM in the BOS meeting room.
I think State Senator Goby's coming in for that to talk.
She will
around-
be here,
yeah,
correct.
There's something
The
around,
crumbling,
crumbling foundations.
Yes.
So tune into that, that's gonna be kind of a big deal.
Yep, and then we will be going into executive session. We will come out of executive session to take care of any actions that need to be dealt with publicly, and then to adjourn.
Mr. Chairman, sorry, Debbie.
No, that's fine,
Oh.
just put it
Mr.
on the
Borowski?
calendar.
I'd like to make a motion that we enter into executive session under MGL Chapter 30A, Section 21A, Number 2, to conduct strategy sessions in preparation for negotiations with non-union personnel and contract negotiations with non-union personnel if the chair declares that an open meeting may have a detrimental effect on the bargaining or litigating position of the public body.
Second?
There's a motion and a second, and the chair does so declare. We'll do a roll call vote. Ms. Piewak?
Aye.
Mr. Borowski?
Aye.
Ms. Noble?
Aye.
Mr. McGrath?
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Motion carries unanimously. We are now in executive session. Thank you.
Thanks, Drew.
Thank you, Drew.